Today's episode is brought to you by Special, the independent streaming service connecting creators and viewers authentically and on demand. Stream independent. For more information, go to special.tv.
The Director Series is made possible by the support of our subscribers on Special. Subscribe today at special.tv/The Director Series and gain access to exclusive full-length Director Series episodes and other bonus content, ad-free. Having already conquered the American cultural zeitgeist, as well as the European award circuit with his first 3 features, there was, understandably, very little room for director Quentin Tarantino to maintain his meteoric upward momentum. The 1-2-3 punch of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Jackie Brown had turned him into a household name, but where he could go from there was anyone's guess. As fate would have it, Tarantino's path forward was not upward, but outward, beyond the outermost limits of narrative convention, aesthetic style, and personal restraint. More specifically, his immediate future lay beyond his home in California, and locales as far-flung as Texas, Mexico, and even China. This period, lasting roughly from the production of Kill Bill in the early 2000s to the double-wide theatrical belly flop that was 2007's Grindhouse, would see Tarantino adopt a dizzying range of aesthetic styles and techniques into his skill set, oftentimes to the point of reckless indulgence, if only for the simple fact that he could easily get away with it. He would also take on a partner in crime, his 4 Rooms and From Dusk Till Dawn collaborator Robert Rodriguez. Both were men of independent sensibilities, profoundly influenced by the schlocky B-movies of their youth, so naturally they forged a quick bond. While he was no stranger to creative partnerships, having co-wrote Pulp Fiction with Roger Avary and co-developed the Kill Bill saga with Uma Thurman, he had never subsumed himself so completely to the stylistic affectations of another like he would with Rodriguez. If one were to be completely unfamiliar with Tarantino's other works and watch just Kill Bill or Death Proof, his entry within the larger Grindhouse double feature, one might get the distinct impression that he and Rodriguez had grown up making homegrown horror and action movies together in the southwestern deserts of Texas, somewhere between the local dive bar and the strip joint. That's most definitely not the case, but it does speak to the power of finding a kindred creative spirit. Easily Tarantino's most prolific period, this middle phase of his career is also his most volatile, comprised of major triumph and massive humiliation, crashing violently together at the intersection of art house and grindhouse. Through it all, one constant: the unrelenting deployment of his supernatural ability to entertain, shock, provoke, and outrage. The seeds of Kill Bill, Tarantino's hyper-stylized and hyper-violent 2-part revenge opus, were first planted on the set of his second feature, 1994's Pulp Fiction, whereby he would sit around with actress and self-described muse Uma Thurman and scheme up an increasingly elaborate yarn about one woman's obsessive, globe-trotting quest to avenge an unforgivable betrayal. Having grown up on a steady diet of kung fu martial arts flicks, samurai epics, spaghetti westerns, and blaxploitation films, Tarantino envisioned the story as essentially one giant homage to his cinematic influences. Come the turn of the new millennium, Tarantino was living in New York City and spending a considerable amount of time with Thurman and her newborn daughter. As he wrote the script, he found Thurman's motherhood had added crucial dimension to the story's heroine, identified only as the bride. Still riding high from the warm reception of his earlier films, Tarantino was emboldened to throw caution to the wind, letting his script balloon out of proportion and chase every little detour that sprung to mind. At this point, most directors would either have had their scripts cut down by executives, or they would do it themselves. But Tarantino is, obviously, not other directors. While his sprawling vision would ultimately come to account under a bladder-annihilating 4-hour runtime that his producing partners demand be split into 2 separate volumes, the production of Kill Bill allowed Tarantino to explore the full extent of his vision over the course of 155 days, and a treasure chest of $55 million to play with.
I never thought you would or could do that to me.
I'm really sorry, kiddo. But you thought wrong.
You and I have unfinished business.
Baby, you ain't kidding.
The decision to split the film in 2, titled Volumes 1 and 2, and released in 2003 and 2004 respectively, proves unexpectedly effective. Each volume is radically different in tone and aesthetic style, even with the disparate genres contained within each. Arguably, one of the more interesting aspects of Kill Bill's production is that the film was shot in chronological order, yet is presented in an extremely non-linear fashion, as per Tarantino's preferred style of storytelling, a complete inversion of usual filmmaking practices, wherein sequences are shot out of order but ultimately presented in linear succession. Kill Bill details the globe-trotting, blood-soaked exploits of the bride, a scorned woman ready to unleash the fury of hell after losing her unborn child and 4 years of her life to a coma, following an altar-side assassination attempt by former colleagues. Once a master assassin in her own right, under the employ of the eponymous mysterious Bill, she's found love and is ready to give up her past and start over anew. The only problem is the past is not quite through with her. Manifest in the form of her murderous crew, the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad. After miraculously, impossibly, surviving a massacre that left her groom and the entire wedding congregation dead, the bride travels to the far ends of the earth to exact her revenge against formidable enemies who can anticipate her every move. While Tarantino concocts the entirety of the project as a gleeful combination of several disparate genres, each volume rallies around one core aesthetic style in particular. In chronicling the bride's journey to Japan in pursuit of Yakuza boss O-Ren Ishii, he blends the kung fu action picture with the sort of highly stylized Japanese crime capers made popular by the likes of Seijun Suzuki. Volume 2 mainly adopts the vernacular of the spaghetti western, as it further details the bride's relentless path towards Bill, her former employer and father to her child, himself a ruthless killer. Both volumes share an eclectic cast comprised of stalwart Tarantino regulars, and new faces that turn in performances as over-the-top as they are sincere. Far more than a list of names on the bride's death list, each character is a vibrant Tarantino creation, played to the hilt with a cartoonish glee that counteracts the enigmatic blank slate of Thurman's character. Vivica A. Fox plays the fierce, sassy Veronica Green, who has become a mother in Pasadena since her hit woman heyday, and subsequently has to hide her furniture-smashing fight to the death from her young daughter. Lucy Liu clearly relishes her role as O-Ren Ishii, made Volume 1's chief antagonist by virtue of Tarantino's editorial restructuring of the film as a two-parter. A highly skilled killer turned Yakuza crime boss who can match the bride blow for blow in sword combat, the role of O-Ren requires Liu to channel her years of experience in other action films to surprisingly subversive effect. Of all the members of Bill's Deadly Viper Assassination Squad, she is given the most backstory, painted as a dark mirror image of the bride. Volume 2 shifts the action back in a southwesterly direction, detailing the remaining personas left on the bride's kill list. In his second performance for Tarantino after 1992's Reservoir Dogs, Michael Madsen breathes palpable life into the character of Bud, his withdrawn eyes channeling a fundamental regret and weariness after forsaking the glamorous lifestyle of international assassin in favor of the meager salary of an underappreciated strip club bouncer. Bud is Bill's brother, and though he may have grown a gross mullet and a flabby beer belly since getting down the bride all those years ago, his bloodline prevents him from totally losing a dangerous and sadistic edge. Daryl Hannah delivers a devious eye-patch performance as Elle Driver, Bill's current beau and arguably the deadliest member of the Viper Assassination Squad. She gets a fantastic, no-holds-barred fight sequence with the bride in Bud's cramped trailer, and she plays up her insidiousness to the requisite cartoonish degree. The late David Carradine is a revelation as the film's eponymous target. Allowed only the use of his scratchy, foreboding voice in Volume 1, Tarantino chooses to reveal his weathered visage in spectacularly anticlimactic fashion at the beginning of Volume 2. Carradine plays the sadistic boss Bill as a surprisingly warm, paternalistic killer poet. It's easy to see why the bride once loved him. Bill is intelligent, cultured, and, despite his criminality, very fair. His actions in massacring the bride's entire bridal party, while undeniably cruel, come from a place of honor that supersedes his relationships, even if said honor system is fundamentally warped. Carradine had largely fallen out of the public eye when he was cast as Bill. Much like John Travolta or Robert Forster before him, he was blessed by the Tarantino effect, whereby aging character actors experience a career resurgence after working for the director. Unlike those others, Carradine's resurgence would manifest itself in a general awareness and newfound respect for his long career, but it didn't really result in more high-profile work. It's very possible that he might have gone on to bigger things, but Carradine passed away in 2009 before he could really capitalize on it. His performance as Bill is probably the best career capstone or cinematic farewell any seasoned character actor could ask for. Tarantino stuffs Kill Bill's supporting cast with an abundance of fantastic character actors playing insanely colorful characters. Julie Dreyfus plays O-Ren's half-French, half-Japanese lawyer and protege, Sophie Fatale. Chiaki Kuriyama plays Gogo Yubari, O-Ren's giggling teenage bodyguard with a mean psychotic streak. Sonny Chiba is a welcome comedic presence as Hattori Hanzo, a wizened sage and retired swordmaker who is called out of retirement when he learns the intended target of the bride's vendetta. The late Sid Haig, who appeared as a judge in Jackie Brown, turns in another small cameo here as the bespectacled bartender of Bud's nudie bar. Tarantino mainstay Samuel L. Jackson appears as Rufus, the blind piano player caught in the unfortunate crossfire of Bill's wrath during the bride's wedding rehearsal. Finally, veteran character actor Michael Parks pulls double duty. Volume 1 finds Parks playing Earl McGraw, a Texas cop and gruff tobacco-spittin' son of a bitch who would pop up again in 2007's Grindhouse, Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's joint directorial effort. In Volume 2, Parks is completely unrecognizable as Esteban, an elderly Mexican pimp and father figure to Bill. Of course, Kill Bill is Thurman's show through and through, and she commands the entirety of our attention with an aggressive performance that propels her through colorful set piece after even more colorful set piece. With revenge tales, it's easy for the protagonist to become so focused in their vendetta that they become one-note killing machines and cease being multi-dimensional human beings. Fortunately, Thurman imbues the bride with unfathomable grit. She courageously stares down every challenge and continually summons up vast wells of strength to overcome them. If Volume 1 sets her up as a cold-blooded, merciless killer, then its closing twist revelation demands a startling vulnerability and adversarial complexity in Volume 2. The film's true heart and soul is not that of an avenging angel of death, but of a lioness doing anything to protect her cub. Known primarily for his strengths as a craftsman of stylish, memorable dialogue, Tarantino wished to use the opportunity of Kill Bill to really challenge himself as a director of action. Well, challenge accepted and accomplished. Kill Bill, Volume 1 in particular, is arguably one of the most dynamic and colorful visual experiences in recent memory. Tarantino's passion for the art form and its seminal works shines through in every frame. He enlists the services of cinematographer Robert Richardson, beginning what would become a fruitful partnership that continues to this day. Gone are the burnished and faded hues of Tarantino past. Kill Bill is slick, with brightly saturated colors and low-key expressionistic lighting that electrifies every cinemascope-shaped frame of the Super 35mm film stock. Tarantino pulls inspiration from every corner of the film universe and mashes them all together into a frenzied Frankenstein form, given coherence under the aesthetic conceits of the exploitation or grindhouse subgenre of cinema. Each sequence appears to reference a specific genre, be it kung fu, blaxploitation, spaghetti western, or even a Brian De Palma-style psychothriller. He even incorporates an anime sequence midway through Volume 1, directed by Kazuto Nakazawa, that details Oren's traumatic origin story. Tarantino's aspirations as an action filmmaker are on full, delirious display throughout Volume 1's central set piece, an extended showdown at the House of Blue Leaves, with O-Ren and her Yakuza mob, the Crazy 88s. His technical mastery and knack for pop cultural tastemaking achieves full power even before the sequence gets underway, creating one of the film's most popular moments in the simple shot of O-Ren and her entourage entering the club. It's barely a blip in terms of narrative significance, but Tarantino stages it as a major moment, with a capital M, framing the action head-on in the wide, while the actors walk in slow motion towards the camera. He then punches in closer via dynamic hard cuts, timed to the horn blasts of Hote Tamaya's Battle Without Honor or Humanity, now regarded as Kill Bill's theme song in the same way we associate Dick Dale's Miserly with Pulp Fiction. That the scene has been endlessly parodied in the years since, Team America Did It Best only a year later, only evidences its resonance as the new visual shorthand for badasses on the move. Shortly after the bride arrives at the club, Tarantino takes us on an expansive, bird's-eye view tour of the House of Blue Leaves. Over the course of a single shot, we zoom across the rafters looking down at the action, descend to eye level, and follow the bride through the hallway into the bathroom, and pull back out again for a wide shot of the scene. Whereas Tarantino usually opts for subtle tracking techniques that hide how complicated they actually are, here he is an unabashed showman. It's almost a brazen, look what I can do kind of statement, an elegant dance between camera and director to the accompaniment of Japanese surf rock, courtesy of real-life rock band the 5-6-7-8s. This kind of showboaty tracking shot draws its inspiration from a cadre of influences like Martin Scorsese, De Palma, Robert Altman, and even Tarantino's generational contemporary Paul Thomas Anderson. The actual fight itself, choreographed by The Matrix's Wu Ping Yuan, is somewhat of a directorial tour de force for Tarantino. It helps that his location was a specially built set at the venerable Shaw Studios in China, where many of Tarantino's favorite kung fu films had been shot in the past. He even references the studio by including a vintage filmed in Shawscope card at the beginning of the film. This sequence alone has the highest body count within Tarantino's entire blood-splattered canon, and is one of the most viscerally violent scenes ever put to film. It's so violent, in fact, that Tarantino switches from color to black and white for a large portion of it, as if to tone down the sight of the literal ocean of blood he sheds. Despite its cartoonish brutality, Tarantino stages the violence with an artful, expressionistic eye. This is further evidence when the sequence switches back to color, and the bride and her adversaries are silhouetted against a bright blue grid in one of the upper chambers. However, it's the final beat of this sequence, a final showdown between O-Ren and the bride, that is easily the most stunning, taking place in a tranquil, snow-covered garden under the moon's pale glow. The sudden transition from the blood-soaked nightclub to the garden's gorgeous serenity alone is breathtaking enough, but what follows contains some of the most beautiful compositions of Tarantino's career. The sequence draws heavily from Toshiya Fujita's 1973 film Lady Snowblood, but Tarantino naturally makes it his own by setting it to the unexpected flamenco rhythms of Santa Esmeralda's cover of Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. It works surprisingly well, and is a prime example of the grindhouse arthouse east-west dichotomy that Tarantino aims to express with the entirety of the project. Throughout both volumes, Tarantino utilizes a variety of camera techniques that are emblematic of the genres he is paying homage to. Most notably, the quick crash zooms that have become associated with pulpy grindhouse films. Ironically enough, the film's best moments come when he stops moving the camera altogether. Halfway through Volume 2, for instance, the bride is captured by Bud and buried alive. This terrifying scene is arguably the most dramatically effective moments in Tarantino's entire career, and he does it all by simply and subtly evoking the very real horror of being buried alive. He throws the image into complete darkness, letting his creative sound design drive the tension in the scene. As each shovelful of dirt lands on top of the bride's coffin with a stomach-churning thud, we feel hopelessness and utter fear set in, even as we wonder how she'll ever escape from this situation. Despite its radical shift to the Sergio Leone-influenced desert vistas of Texas and Mexico, Volume 2 nevertheless maintains a through line of visual style that illustrates how each volume is truly half of a whole. Returning editor Sally Menke deftly navigates the non-chronological structure of Tarantino's narrative, signifying each major story movement with his signature chapter intertitles. Regular production designer David Wasco allows Tarantino to infuse vibrant color wherever possible, with imaginative sets like the aforementioned House of Blue Leaves nightclub, or Bill's stylish Mexican homestead, or even via whimsical miniatures like a plane descending over a handcrafted Tokyo skyline. The effect isn't exactly photorealistic, nor is it meant to be. Instead, it's emblematic of the sublime charms of old-fashioned filmmaking techniques Tarantino employs in service to his expressionistic vision. If Kill Bill's technical approach implies a unified aesthetic meant to bridge the narrative divide between volumes, then Tarantino's choice of needle drops gives ample room for both halves to assert themselves. His previous films had put his knack for eclectic, taste-making soundtracks on full display, but both volumes upped the bar considerably, drawing in a musical potpourri of influences from every corner of the world. The disparate musical styles of Volume 1 bear little resemblance to each other on their surface, but Tarantino combines them in a way that creates a unique character for the film. Nancy Sinatra, Charlie Parker, Ennio Morricone, and Zamfir the flutist all contribute to a mishmash musical palette, weaving into one another in a rich tapestry. In a first for Tarantino, original score elements were commissioned by RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan. Volume 2 expands upon this movement, enlisting Robert Rodriguez to supply a spaghetti western-infused score that competes against the various Morricone-penned cues that Tarantino sprinkles throughout. For those yet to be initiated into the cult of Tarantino, Kill Bill may just be the clearest example of his signature stylistic conceits, albeit amped up to an almost cartoonish degree. If the multitude of fan theories about the Tarantino ultra-connected cinematic universe bear any grounding in truth, then Kill Bill's heavily exaggerated rendition isn't an accident, or even an artistic indulgence on the director's part. In short, the Tarantino universe is said to be an alternate reality not too far removed from our own, where society as a whole feeds off an innate proclivity for violence, profanity, and sex, not unlike the worlds depicted in the Grand Theft Auto series. When it comes to the Kill Bill films in particular, no attempt is made to fit inside the chaos of Tarantino's artistic jigsaw puzzle. Rather, they exist as a manifestation of the kind of movie that this exaggerated society would produce. In other words, a movie whose violent aspects are cranked to 11 for a bloodthirsty audience desensitized to violence as an everyday fact of life. When, say, the Vega brothers, Vincent and Vic, go to a movie theater together on their day off, they'd be going to see a movie much like Kill Bill. This meta approach reverberates through both volumes, giving Tarantino ample license to break the fourth wall while still protecting himself behind one or two extra layers of stylistic artifice.
When I woke up, I went on what the movie advertisements refer to as a roaring rampage of revenge.
Take the beginning of Volume 2, for example, in which the bride addresses the audience directly as she drives down to Mexico to find and kill Bill. Rendered in silver screen monochrome against a blatantly fake background on a rear projection screen, the bride recaps the events of Volume 1 in a manner that suggests she's just come from the theater herself, going so far as to even include pull quotes from critics. None of this should work, but Tarantino has managed to build a fully realized world where literally anything is possible. For a filmmaker as recklessly yet justifiably indulgent as Tarantino, Kill Bill plays like a greatest hits album of his infamous stylistic flourishes. This starts at go, with an opening title card quoting that famous Star Trek line, "Revenge is a dish best served cold," pointing to the plethora of pop culture references to come, ultimately ending with Bill's incisive commentary on the character of Superman as a critique on the evolutionary inferiority of the human race.
What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us.
There's also numerous instances of chapter intertitles and other text cards that careen between various fonts and colors, including his signature yellow. Still more, fetishized shots of women's bare feet, the black and white suited look that Tarantino's professional criminals, from the Reservoir Dogs to the Crazy 88s, don like a uniform. The victim cam/trunk shot that assumes the perspective of the helpless prey looking up at the menacing predator, and the bounty of profanely verbose characters, which in the case of Kill Bill mixes with an oddly formal vernacular reminiscent of the old samurai pictures that influenced the story.
I beseech you for both on behalf of my daughter.
Bitch, you can stop right there.
There's little doubt that Kill Bill stands as a major turning point in Tarantino's career. Taken as a whole, it was his highest grossing film until it was eventually unseated by Inglourious Basterds in 2009. The film's success, however, would come at the expense of his otherwise fruitful collaboration with Thurman. After encouraging her to ignore her concerns about the safety of a certain driving stunt, only for her to indeed have an accident and suffer both a concussion and knee damage, Tarantino managed to lose the trust of one of his closest collaborators. Ever the professional, Thurman stayed on and finished her work to the very best of her ability, but it remains to be seen if the two will ever work on another film together again. This would seem to complicate Tarantino's long-standing but never fully serious plans to make a Volume 3, the plot of which reportedly would find the bride as the target of a revenge quest undertaken by the grown daughter of Vernita Green. One of Tarantino's most fervent wishes about his Kill Bill sub-universe has nonetheless come true in the years since. Not long after his producers forced him to split the film into 2 volumes, Tarantino expressed his desire to one day release his full 4-hour version as a single work. Only a few months after the release of Volume 2, he did just that, premiering a cut he dubbed The Whole Bloody Affair out of competition at Cannes. Yet to be released on home video and rarely seen outside of art house theaters, most notably the New Beverly Cinemas in Los Angeles, which Tarantino himself owns. The Whole Bloody Affair reportedly makes only minor cosmetic adjustments to the film, like the restoration of the massacre at the House of Blue Leaves to full color, instead of the black and white scheme meant to appease the ratings board. Some sequences are even dropped to accommodate the revised flow, but nothing new is added or expanded upon. It's unknown whether The Whole Bloody Affair will ever see a wide release, but if the day never does come, we can apparently rest assured that we're not missing out on Tarantino's definitive vision for the film, or even a particularly transformative experience. In hindsight, Kill Bill's success seems like a foregone conclusion, but it helps to remember just how fragile Tarantino's position was upon its release. His distinct style had played such a significant role in defining pop culture throughout the 1990s that some rightly wondered whether his artistic voice could survive in the new millennium. Indeed, Tarantino had been away from cinema screens for nearly 7 years, and a lot had happened on the world stage since Jackie Brown. Would there still be a place for him at the table when he came back? Of course, we know the answer. His extended hiatus had recharged his batteries, and he returned with the same fury and intensity that marked his breakout. Just don't call it a comeback. Kill Bill proved that, even though he had been away, he had never truly left, and he could quite easily adapt with the changing times while still doing what he does best, crafting killer movies.